بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. And before we continue in our explanation of the three fundamental principles, I want to mention two things from last week's lesson. Firstly, we were talking about bid'ah last week, and I said that bid'ah can be divided into two types. I believe it was a slip of the tongue. Some of the ulama, they mentioned this, that bid'ah can be saghira and a kabira. But most of the scholars, when they talk about bid'ah, the general ruling they mention is that all of it is from the major sins. Because we said bid'ah is one of the worst things. So therefore, the asl is that a bid'ah, innovation, is a kabira, a major sin. But some ulama, they did mention that with certain conditions it can become a saghira, a minor sin, like Imam Shatibi rahimahullah mentions that. But the more safer opinion, just stick with the idea that it's always an asl, a major sin. So that I want to clarify. Second thing we mentioned last week about minor shirk. And someone asked a question about leaving actions لأجل الناس, for the sake of people. So I want to read a nice fatwa from the Permanent Committee, Al-Lajnah Da'ima. It's available on the Al-Ifta in English, where they asked that question about when is leaving an action for the sake of people riya, type of showing off, and when is it not? Because we said, there's a narration from Fudail ibn Iyad, rahimahullah, who said that if you leave an action of obedience for the sake of the people, it is a type of riya, just like if you were to do it for their sake. So here, the Lajnah Da'ima, they mention, all right, we can share in the group, but just read the summary of what they mention, that the idea is that if you cannot leave off an action which is obligatory to be done for the case of or sake of people. So if the affair is wajib, like salat al-fard, al-fard salah, you can't leave it off ever for the sake of people. For example, someone might say, somebody's looking at me, and I'm praying a fard salah. It's fard salah, you pray, don't worry about that. But when it comes to mustahabbat, the recommended actions, then if someone left it off for the sake of the people, then there is a tafsil, there's tafsil. If you left it off because there is an actual legislative reason. For example, I'm praying salah in a place where people typically don't pray salah in public, and I'm afraid that people are going to criticize me severely or maybe praise me. So for those reasons I go and I pray in private, that's okay, they say. That's siyasa shar'iyya. If you, for example, left off an action because you know there's an imminent threat. For example, I'm going to pray, I'm going to do something good, and then the people might attack me. It's not considered leaving off for Allah's sake if you went and did it somewhere else. But if you left it off for their sake because you wanted to please them, or something which is not legislated, then it becomes a type of minor shirk, because you're not doing it for Allah's sake. So the summary is, if you're leaving it off for Allah's sake, something legislated, or an intention or a reason which is Islamically or sanctioned, then it's not for their sake. And this is only for recommended deeds, not obligations. Or if shaitan comes to you and says, oh, you're praying the fard salah, you're showing off, ignore that and pray. If you're praying a recommended prayer, likewise, shaitan may come to you. Also, you shouldn't intend it. Only when you have a legislated reasoning. And this is why the ulama, they mentioned this point. So, inshallah, we'll share that fatwa because it's a helpful one based on the question we got last week. Tayyib, inshallah, we begin now from the discussion about khawf. Shaykh al-Islam, rahimahullah, he says that from the actions, because we spoke about the different ibadat, one of the ibadat is khawf, fear. He says, وَالدَّلِيلُ الْخَوْفِ. So if we have to go backwards a little bit, the Shaykh says that from the actions which are only allowed to be performed for Allah's sake, and he mentions a series of them. One of them is khawf, fear. He says, وَالدَّلِيلُ الْخَوْفِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى لَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. The evidence for fear, being an act of worship, is Allah's statement, and do not fear them, rather fear me if you truly believe. Here, Shaykh Saalih al-Shaykh, he mentions, khawf, fear, is one of those actions which has categories. There is khawf, which is only for Allah, yani khawf, that you can only fear Allah with, i.e. a particular khawf, which is for Allah. We're going to talk about this one. Then there's a khawf which everyone has. A typical fear you have of things that are dangerous. Then there's a fear that you shouldn't have, but if you have it, it's still not shirk, but it's best not to have. So how can we understand fear? The ulama say fear then is of three categories. Three categories. And it's important to understand these categories because if you don't, you will fall into a mistake, which you will think something which is permissible becomes shirk, or that which is shirk becomes permissible, and these kind of things. Your first category is khawf al-tabi'i, natural fear. When you're afraid of something which human beings are supposed to be afraid of. For example, a lion, a snake. It's human nature to be afraid of those things. Now, some people might not be afraid of them. That's a ni'mah from Allah. Maybe they're not scared of the lion. But if you're a regular human, you should be afraid of the lion. So this kind of fear is natural. There is no sin in that, and someone is not committing shirk by doing that. وَالدَّلِيلُ قِصَّةُ Musa alayhi salam. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Musa to put down the staff, right, and then it became a snake, Allah told him, خُذْهَا وَلَا تَخَفْ. Take the stick and don't be afraid. Musa was scared when he first saw the snake, because it's khawf tabi'i to be scared of a snake. Another example, Musa alayhi salam in his story, when he ran from Fir'aun, when they were planning to kill him for accidentally killing the other man, he said that I fled from you لَمَّا خِفْتُكُمْ, when I was afraid of you. This kind of fear is tabi'i, a natural fear. If someone's going to imagine a group of people coming to beat you or assault you, you have to run. You fear naturally. However, natural fear, the Shaykh mentions examples, and then there's a type of natural fear which is not natural. Somebody being afraid of something they're not supposed to be afraid of, that's fear which is blameworthy. So for example, someone is afraid of their own shadow, or they're afraid of the dark. It's not praiseworthy. This is not the natural fear. You need to make dua to Allah to remove that kind of fear. Because this will not affect your iman necessarily, but it's affecting your personality and your character. You shouldn't be afraid of that which is not actually afraid of. And some people might have a sickness, so that's different. If someone has a sickness where they're afraid of things which they shouldn't be of, then they should seek the treatment. Khawf tabi'i, number one. Number two, khawf al-shirki. Al-khawf al-shirki is the polytheistic fear. And this is referred to as khawf al-sirr. Khawf al-sirr, the secret fear. Khawf al-shirki is the one we have to stay away from. This is what the chapter is about. If somebody is scared of something else of the creation in a manner which they're only supposed to be afraid of for Allah, that's a type of shirk. What does this mean? Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala you're supposed to be afraid of to the level in your heart, to the level that you fear that thing that you're scared of. If you fear to the level where you think it's going to harm you in something which is not capable of harming you in, or you're scared of it that it's going to harm you and there's no reason whatsoever for it to harm you, or you are afraid of that thing the way you're afraid of Allah, all of that is a type of shirk. Only Allah you're supposed to fear to that level. Why? Because Allah ala kulli shayin qadir. And Allah is the one who controls the universe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's the one who we are truly afraid of, and we have to fear Him. And so when we say fear Allah the way that He deserves to be afraid of. Khawf al-sirr is the type of fear which is not permissible to give to anyone besides Allah. So for example, if someone in the heart is afraid that something of the creation can hit them with afflictions and calamities, which is not possible that they do, this is a dangerous issue. This is khawf al-sirr. Someone has an aqeedah issue. But if someone is afraid of something which is possible to happen, because that thing that they're scared of can possibly harm them. For example, certain foods can give them an allergic reaction. This is a natural and reasonable fear. That's so very important. The fear that Quraysh they had, and the polytheists, when they tried to scare Ibrahim alayhi salam with the idols, they told them, aren't you afraid of our idols? That if you break them or you disrespect them, they will curse you. It's khawf al-sirr. He didn't accept that from them. Because that kind of khawf is not real. What can the idols do? So imagine somebody's scared of an idol, that is idol, if I don't walk by it without giving a gift, or if I do something wrong, it's going to curse me. That's khawf al-shirki. How can the idol harm you? What do you believe about Allah can only be for Allah. The last one, so the whole chapter the Shaykh is talking about khawf al-sirri, it's in the qalb, it's in your heart. So very important, someone has to analyze how they fear something. You never fear anything the way that you fear Allah. Even if you were to make a mistake, it's okay to sin, but you don't fear something the way you fear Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only one who deserves true fear, in the sense that everything else can harm you possibly, but only if Allah permits it. And nothing can harm you, right, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected you. Khawf al-shirki is very dangerous, and it's a type of ibad of the heart. The last one is the khawf al-muharram. It's a haram fear, the prohibited fear, and that is for someone to fear the creation in terms of being scared to do one of the obligations that you're supposed to do out of fear of people. So this is khawf muharram, it's haram kind of fear. You're scared to do an obligation from the obligations of Allah because of the people. So for example, the Shaykh says praying salah. You must pray the salah, you cannot be scared of people that you don't pray. So for example, if someone says, I'm scared, I can't pray. I can't pray at work, I can't pray outside, I can't pray in any place because the people are going to see me. That's khawf muharram. You're supposed to be afraid of Allah, not them. Same way, if someone was afraid, like for a woman, to be afraid to wear the hijab because of the people. It's wajib to wear the hijab, right? You can't say, I'm scared, the people are going to criticize me. Don't worry about that criticism. This khawf is not the right place because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's going to protect you. Another example, someone's afraid, for example, to do any of the obligations. Going to Jum'ah, Salah. Or any of the types of mu'amalat is wajib on you because of other people. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though this kind of khawf is not khawf sir, it's not khawf shirki, it's still muharram. So the third category is not khawf shirki, but it's haram. And so many Muslims may fall into this category if they're not careful. For example, they're too worried about the people, they forgot about Allah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells in the Quran, إِنَّمَا ذَلِكُمُ الشَّيْطَانُ يُخَوِّفُ أَوْلِيَاءُهُ. That is shaitan who's trying to scare you by way of his awliya, his allies. فَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. And don't be scared of them, but be scared of Allah if you truly believe. So 3 categories of khawf. Where is the benefit from this chapter? Khawf shirki, khawf sir, is the one that most people, if they don't study tawheed, they may fall into without knowing. And khawf shirki is shirk akbar. It's major shirk. Because you equated Allah with other than Allah. It's very important. Khawf shirki is shirk akbar. Why major shirk? Because you have feared something besides Allah like you fear Allah. And we said the definition of shirk is to equate Allah with other than Allah in that which is specific for Allah. To share or equate Allah with other than Allah and that which is khas or min khususiyat, from the specific qualities or specifications of Allah. So always check your heart and do not be afraid of anything to that level. Common examples of khawf sir is when people are scared of graves. Like back home, someone may be scared, if you don't slaughter for the grave, the jinn are going to attack us. You can't be afraid of the jinn like you're afraid of Allah. Or, if I don't leave an offering or something, or dua for the grave, the person in the grave is going to curse me. He's in the barzakh, he can't hear you even. Or, like we said, someone's scared that another human being has the capacity to control their life or harm them in ways that's impossible for a human being to do. You see, very important. If you have too much fear, you may fear things that are not even real. And that's why Ibrahim a.s., his people, they said to him, when they tried to scare him, that if you don't respect our idols, they're going to curse you. He says, وَكَيْفَ أَخَافُ مَا أَشْرَكْتُمْ وَلَا تَخَافُونَ أَنَّكُمْ أَشْرَكْتُمْ بِاللَّهِ. How can they be afraid of that which you commit associate partners with it, when you don't even are afraid of Allah, who you commit shirk with? So here he's trying to challenge them. Why should I be scared of your idols and you're not scared of Allah? And so what did Ibrahim teach us? Don't be afraid of those kind of things. So the Muslim should always, always, always remember, khawf, fear, is from the actions of the heart, and it's only belonging to Allah. And the one we mentioned, the third category of being scared of the creation to the point where you don't give the rights of Allah is also haram. طيب, the next one now, the Shaykh moves to the opposite, which is ar-raja. Ar-raja is hope. وَدَلِيلُ الرَّجَاءِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. And the evidence for hope is Allah's statement, فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. And whosoever hopes for the meeting of their Lord, then let them work actions of righteousness and do not associate partners with your Lord, or do not associate anyone as partners with your Lord. Here, the opposite of khawf is raja, hope. And the Shaykh didn't mention mahabba here, but so if someone is interested in that, because the Shaykh didn't mention here, but you can find it. I might as well give it to you reference. Kitab al-Tawheed. You go to Kitab al-Tawheed, because the Shaykh didn't mention here, but it's a good one as well. There's also mahabba, right? The heart has love. Love is an action of the heart. Just like there's categories of fear, there's categories of love. So I encourage the brothers to go to Kitab al-Tawheed, Shaykh ibn Uthaymeen's commentary, rahimahullah, in English. Volume 2, page 52 downwards. And we covered this before when we did Kitab al-Tawheed, but just to remind you, it talks about mahabba, love and its categories. Shaykh al-Islam doesn't mention it here, but because we talked about fear and now hope, we need the last one, love. So go to there. Kitab al-Tawheed, it's a PDF, Qawl al-Mufid, Ibn Uthaymeen, volume 2, page 52 downwards. It's very, very nice. But we'll do now what the Shaykh mentions, raja, hope. Hope is action of the heart. Again, what does it mean to hope? Hope is of two kinds, two types. One is when you hope from something of the creation, in that which they're capable of hoping for or giving you. The first category, you're hoping from the creation to help you or to give you that which they can possibly give you and help you with. This kind of hope is raja'un tabi'i, natural hope. So natural hope is halal. For example, I hope that my neighbor can help me with some kind of spices I'm missing in my house. I knock their door and I ask for help. I'm hoping in my heart they have it, they can help me. It's halal. I hope my employee will give me a day off when I ask for it and he's capable of giving me a day off. Because he's in charge. These are not considered shirk. Khawf tabi'i. Why? Because the creation you're asking or hoping from, they can help you and they can do it. This is a halal one. Haram raja, the haram one, is one that's only belonging to Allah and you gave it to other than Allah. Raja'ul ibadah, the hope of worship. When you put your hope and your yearning to a creation in that which they cannot give you. Very important, they can't do it. It's not possible for a human being to do it, and you mistakenly hoping for them to provide you that. Example, you hope the doctor can cure you, and the doctor has no power over cure. A lot of people, they have this problem. They don't study Tawheed. They think the doctor can cure you. The doctor can give you medicine. He can direct you, but he can't cure you. When I'm sick, Allah cures me. Ibrahim a.s. said, right? That's Tawheed. Some people go to doctor and when the doctor says, I can't help you, or his remedy or his treatment doesn't work, you're getting worried or you're complaining. He's a doctor. He doesn't have the power. Or you ask someone from the creation, hoping from them that they grant you Jannah. Astaghfirullah azim. They can't. They themselves need to go to Jannah. They can't grant you it. Only Allah can. Another example, you're hoping from the creation to stop a calamity from befalling you in that which they can't even do. Only Allah can bring the calamities and remove them. Another example, you're hoping from the creation to provide you a child. Like some of the laity, they go to some people and they ask them to grant them a child, and they hope they can grant them a child. Again, this is shirk. And so, raja al-ibadah belongs to Allah. Only to Allah. And that's why Allah says, فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو Whosoever hopes liqa Rabbih, to meet their Lord. And here, hope here is hope ibadah. Why? Because you're hoping from Allah, you're hoping His reward, His salvation, the Jannah, that's only for Allah, then do the righteous deeds. So the benefit we take, you can only hope from people that which they can possibly do. It's very important. If you really think a doctor can cure you, you need to revise your tawheed. The doctor is a means, he's not the one who provides the result. A lot of people, they mix the two. And so when it comes to hoping, always make sure you're hoping from people that which they're capable of doing. On top of that, you should also be realistic. Just because you hope someone can possibly help you also doesn't mean they will help you. So here in Islam, we're taught we can ask people to help us. We can hope for them to help us. But human beings, we know, we're not always reliable. So that's another benefit to add on top of that. So even raja tabi'i, be realistic. Most people want to benefit you or help you when you need them. Only some people. Because there's some people, even though they're asking or hoping from people, they're asking or hoping from them, and they don't help them, and they wonder why. That's the nature of human beings. You shouldn't be that naive. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam already told us the nature of people. People are like 1 out of 100 camels. You can barely find one good one to ride. Hadith Bukhari. You have to know this in the beginning. Because if you think too optimistic, you say, why nobody's helping me? Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala first, and then put your trust in Allah, and then ask those who can actually help you. Because also it's a mistake to seek from someone or to hope the one who can't help you. It would be foolishness, right? To go to someone who is not a doctor, hoping from them to provide you a cure. But then the two, we don't want to mix. If you hope from the doctor to give you the treatment, that's khawf, that's raja tabi'i. To hope Allah cures you, that's raja al-ibadah. The difference, you ask the doctor for the medicine, that's raja tabi'i. You hope Allah cures you, that's the tawheed. That's raja, that's the hope, that is ibadah. Very important. The Muslims should always check their heart. And the nature of ibadah, one of the things, brothers, we should pay attention to, the nature of these actions of the heart, is that it's hard to tell what you believe or what you don't until you check your own self. As human beings, we don't know sometimes what we believe in, or we don't until times of calamity when we notice, why am I having too much hope? Why am I fearing this too much? So you have to check your heart. And no one can accuse someone of an action of shirk of the heart because they don't know what's in the heart is of that person. So that person must check. But if we have signs of this, we have to advise the person to be careful. For example, if someone overstepped the bounds of hope, we have to advise them, be wary. Put your hope in Allah. Now the author moves, Shaykh al-Islam, to the issue of at-tawakkul. And this is a very important chapter. Because the other two, while they're easy to understand, tawakkul needs explanation. Because this one is where most people may find a weakness in. قالت الشيخ رحمه الله ودليل توكلي قوله تعالى. And the evidence for tawakkul is Allah's statement, وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَلْيَتَوَكَّلُوا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. In Allah put your reliance and trust if you truly believe. وَقَوْلُهُ وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. And whosoever puts their trust in Allah, Allah will suffice them. First, tawakkul, we should know, it means to put your reliance and trust in Allah. At-tawakkul is from the ibadat qalbiyya, the actions of the heart. It's important, the heart. And what it means is that you have to do two things to truly be putting your trust in Allah. Two things. Number one, you have to make tafweed, put in trust the affair and the result and the outcome with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In your heart, you have to sincerely believe Allah is the only one in control of the outcome, nobody else. That's the first. If you don't do this, you haven't come with tawakkul. Because if you just think, I will do what I have to do and I'll get what I want, you didn't understand. Only Allah can provide, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can prevent. So you have to entrust the affair to Allah. In your heart, you truly believe Allah has everything in control. Number two, you take the means, but you don't rely upon the means. It's important. Number two, you take the means. You have to take the means that's going to help you. Like in the Shaykh mentioned, عَدِمُ الرُّؤْيَا sabab. But don't look at the means as the only way to get it. You don't think the means you're going to make it only. Two things you need then. Number one, you put your trust in Allah in your heart that you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the outcome in His hand. Everything's in His hand. Everything is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides. And number two, you take the means, but don't put your trust in the means. Tawakkul, one of the most important things about it, because it's an action of the heart, somebody must constantly work on strengthening their trust in Allah. Because Allah will test you and He will trial you to see how strong your trust is in Him. If you think, you say, I trust Allah and then everything will be smooth sailing, that's not how you trust Allah. Allah will test you to see if you really have tawakkul. So the ulama, when they talk about tawakkul, they often define it as the truthful reliance of the heart upon Allah. The truthful reliance of the heart upon Allah. At the same time taking the means. The truthful reliance of the heart on Allah while taking the means. Because if you didn't do either of these, you haven't fully trusted in Allah. The ulama, when they mention the issue of tawakkul, first thing you have to do is put your truthful trust in Allah. Which means, in your heart, you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's going to decide. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds us again and again, everything happens by Allah's decree. So if you think, I will do whatever I have to do, for example, I'll take this course of action and I will get this result, you're mistaken. The result is dependent if Allah allows it or not. So you need Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's idhn, His permission for it to happen. So as Muslims, we're often reminded, when something doesn't happen as planned, what do we say? If something happens in our life other than what we planned, what are we supposed to say? قَدَرُ اللَّهِ مَا شَاءَ فَعَلَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whatever He decreed has occurred. Why do we say that? Because we understand the first point. The affair is in the hand of Allah. Otherwise you would say, why not? It's not in your hand. You already knew that in the beginning. And to affirm that when it doesn't happen, you say that. Same thing, you also believe, before you do something tomorrow, what are you supposed to say? Insha'Allah. Why? Because you believe everything happens by Allah's permission and His mashi'ah. Otherwise, you would just do it and you wonder why it didn't happen. So the Muslim gets constant reminders. Train yourself to say Insha'Allah. Train yourself to say Qadar Allah ma sha fa'al every time something happens you don't like. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, great example of tawheed. He did something, he went for a particular action or something, he didn't like the outcome. Always his response, Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. So the first, if something happened, you like it, you say Alhamdulillah. You don't like it, Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. Alhamdulillah between both. You have to train yourself. Because if you didn't have proper tawakkul, you would think, why didn't it happen? That means you didn't understand. So always you have to understand that point that the heart has to be truthfully relying upon Allah. That's why we have things like Salatul Istiqara, to train us to make a decision, then pray the 2 rak'ahs, put your trust in Allah and leave the outcome to Allah. That dua istikhara, beautiful. When you read the explanation, what it's telling us and what we're believing. Second thing you need is the sabab, asbab. And asbab are the means that are going to lead you to something. You need to take the proper means, not just any means. Asbab shar'iyya, or sabab shar'i, a legislated means. Because when we study Kitab al-Tawheed, we learn some means are not allowed to be taken because they don't actually help. So if someone took a wrong means, then this is not tawakkul. For example, you put in your heart the trust, Allah is going to cure me, and then you take a medicine that doesn't even cure that sickness. This is wrong. You have to take a proper means. Shar'i means halal and beneficial. Shar'i means it's halal and it's asl and it's beneficial in your cause. If you take a means which is halal but not beneficial, it's not correct means. Or worse, you take a means that doesn't even help, like when you do superstitions, and you say, I'm protected. Why? Because I did my lucky routine. It's not going to help you. So the ulama, when they mentioned asbab, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam put emphasis on the sabab. He didn't just say, go, tawakkul on Allah. I'qilha wa tawakkul, thumma tawakkul. He told the Sahabi, tie that your camel and then put your trust in Allah. In today's time, lock the door of your car, then put your trust in Allah. Especially if you're driving an expensive car, lock the door. Don't just leave it there and put my trust in Allah. But see, simple things like this. Lock the door of your house, then put your trust in Allah. Shaykh Saalih mentioned something very important now. When it comes to the sabab, the means, you have to understand something. There's 3 things that you need for a means to actually work. 3 things. Because somebody will say, I put my trust in Allah, I took the means and it didn't work. The problem is, maybe you didn't take the right means. Firstly, you have to have the right means. So the right means. For example, if you're going to study something, you get the correct textbooks in the course. If you're going to take a job option, you need to first find out the requirements. Take the means to get what you need. Number 2, you have to make sure that the thing that you're applying the means to is applicable. Salahiyatul mahal. The place where you want to apply the means to has to be ready. I'm going to give an example of this after. So you have to make sure that where you want to take the means is prepared to accept something. It's very important. You can't just take a means and then what you want to do, for example, medicine. You can't take a medication and your body is already sick and that medication doesn't work with your body because you have a specific sickness. The means have to be taken and the body has to prepare for that means. So to make sure that the place on what you're trying to apply the means to is ready, prepared. Lastly, remove any preventatives. Anything that might oppose the means have to be removed. Now the Shaykh, he gives us an example that explains all of it. Example, somebody is sick. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam told us, cure yourselves, all servants of Allah. So you have to seek cure when you're sick. When you seek the cure, you have to make sure that your body, which is going to be the source, the place for the cure, must be ready for that cure. So for example, if your body, or the particular part of your body is not prepared for the cure, you must prepare that part first before you apply the cure. Sometimes the doctor will tell you first you have to do this particular procedure or this particular preparation beforehand. Why? Because you put the cure directly, it doesn't work. Thirdly, if something is there that's preventing it, that has to be removed as well. Now, example, Hadith Bukhari, Muslim, many of us we know. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one day, a man came to him and he said that his brother is complaining. Ishtaka, his brother is complaining about a pain in his batn, his stomach. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, Isqihi aslan, give him some honey to drink. He went, he took the honey, came back and said, Ya Rasulullah, he's still complaining. What happened here? This is the point of tawakkul. Number 1, he took the means. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave him the cure, which is a honey. The problem was, he took it one time, not enough. It's not enough, he needed to take it more. But the ulama said, why didn't it work the first time? The second time it didn't work, the third time it worked, because there was something in his body, fasad, that was preventing the cure from working. So he needed more than one gulp of honey, right? The procedure might be multiple times. Finally, all the preventative is gone, now the cure worked. Makes sense? Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was right. That's why he said the cure is correct and your brother's stomach is lying. Some people, they didn't understand the hadith. What it means is that his stomach was ready. The cure is ready, is correct, but his stomach wasn't ready after, except that he takes it multiple times because there was something preventing it. Same thing, the doctor might do a procedure and might have to do a follow-up on another one, and finally you're cured. You see, very important. That's when tawakkul on Allah is truly meant. Everything has to be in its place. Ibn Qayyim actually says this as well. When he talks about cure, he mentions this point in his Kitab al-Jawab al-Kafi. He mentions the point that why sometimes a means is taken to cure, or a particular action is taken, it doesn't work. And he mentions sometimes it's because of the effect of the one doing it. Sometimes the place is not ready for it. Sometimes it's a preventative that prevents it, etc., etc. So no one should think Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam prescribed the wrong cure. Right? And that's why the ulama, they explain the hadith. They say this is why it didn't work initially, because Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted him to take it multiple times. It's a process. Added to this, when it comes to tawakkul, you have to also understand that it may not work even after all means are taken because Allah never permitted it. So that's the fourth one. If Allah doesn't permit something to happen, it will never happen. And the Shaykh mentioned that's the key here. Even if you took all the means, it still might not happen. Because whatever Allah wills will occur, and whatever He didn't will not occur. So that's when tawakkul on Allah comes. I took all the means, I went to all the doctors, I took everything, I still got the sickness. That's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's decree. Then you have rida, you have to have pleasure for what Allah decreed. This fourth one is where many times Muslims and even non-Muslims, they don't understand. They may tell themselves, I did everything, it's still not working. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decreed this, accept the decree. And the Shaykh gives an example of someone who prepared for a journey. His car is ready, his journey is ready, his food, his provisions, and after all of this, he still gets into an accident. He drove safely because Allah decreed that it will happen. Why is tawakkul on Allah such an important issue? It's because if someone doesn't come with it correctly in their heart and with the means, they can fall into a type of shirk. And so someone should be careful, right? Either they fall into minor or major shirk. Right? So for example, major shirk, you put all your trust in the means, not Allah at all. You think by going and studying for your test, you will pass the test. That's it. I just have to study. Allah has nothing to do with my passing, failing. This is shirk akbar. A'udhu billah. How can you believe you can decide the right and wrong or the actions? But if you put your trust in Allah, but then you took a wrong means, asbab or sabab ghayr shar'i, then that's minor shirk, as we studied before in Kitab al-Tawheed. Simple example, somebody says, I want to be healthy, and then they take one of those fads or trends, something that's not really medicine, and they drank this and they say, it gave me energy. It could be a placebo effect. That's what we say, that's a minor shirk. This sabab doesn't work. You made it up. And that's what's important, to make sure that they actually scientifically or experientially proven that the means work. Not just somebody told you, that this actually is good. How do you know? This person could have made it up. And these are many times when people fall into minor shirk because they attach the success to something that's not there. Also, the ulama warn heavily from somebody putting trust in the means, but also those who don't take the means. Tawakkul is different than something called at-tawakkulu. At-tawakkul is when you put your trust in people. You're relying on others. Tawakkul, reliance on Allah. At-tawakkul, al-i'timad ala al-makhluq. You put your trust in people. What's the ruling at tawakkul? You put your trust in people. It's haram. You don't take any means. You can't say my means to my affair is I put my trust in this other guy. I'm going to ask him, he's going to do it for me. Hadith ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma fi al-Bukhari, كان أهل Yemen, they used to يحجون, they used to make hajj, ولا يتزورون, they didn't take any provisions. ويقولون نحن متوكلون, and they used to say we're people of tawakkul. So then Allah revealed the ayah, وَتَزَوَّدُوا فَإِنَّ خَيْرِ الزَّادِ تَقْوَى. Take your provisions, and the best of it is taqwa. Why did this ayah come down? Because they were claiming to be doing tawakkul, but they were doing tawakkul. They would go on the tariq, halfway in hajj, they were stranded, and asked people, help us out with food and provisions. That's tawakkul. So if somebody says, I'm going to go get a job, and how I'm going to do it, I'm going to ask another guy to find me a job. This is not tawakkul on Allah. You didn't, first of all, even if your heart is correct, your action is wrong. You have to go after it. And that's why the hadith in Islam teaches us, tawakkul is for every category of people. I'll give you two examples. Hadith, we know, many of us know Hadith Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, if you truly put your trust in Allah, Allah will provide for you like He provides for the birds. It goes out hungry in the morning and comes fed in the evening. Here, the bird puts his trust in Allah. All animals do. They have to trust in Allah. Allah will provide for them. But what do they do that's unique? They go out the nest to go hunt for the food. That's why Imam Ahmad said this hadith dalil for asbab. The bird doesn't sit in the nest. It goes out all day looking for the worm. So somebody might want to be like the bird. The bird not only goes out, it goes out and it looks and it makes effort to find it. Right? I think that we have the saying, the early bird gets the worm. Why? Because the bird goes out early, maybe the whole day just to get one worm. But it goes out. Imam Ahmad said that's dalil. And another great, beautiful example, qissa, Maryam alayhi salam. In the Quran, when Allah mentioned that Maryam, when she gave birth to Isa, she was so weak. Right? Postpartum now, bleeding. What did Allah tell Maryam to do? To get her provisions. وَهُزِّي إِلَيْكَ. Right? You have to shake the tree. Allah brought the rutab from the tree. She shook the tree, even though she's weak in the state. Imam Qurtubi says she shook the tree in despite her weakness, and her dates came to teach us take the asbab even in this age, in this situation. Allahu Akbar. If you imagine, she shook a palm tree and dates came and she shaking the bottom. That's not how you're going to get the palm trees. Allah gave the miracle on top of that. But why was Allah telling her to do that? To teach us all, you have to take the means. She shook the tree even though that it's still not going to work, but by Allah's fadl it came. Allahu Akbar. Even that situation is a benefit for all Muslims, because tawakkul is very common amongst people, where they sit and say, I need help, and they're not doing anything. If you put your trust in Allah, take the means. Don't be someone who doesn't put their trust in Allah. Added to this subject, the Shaykh mentions, when it comes to also tawakkul, the Shaykh brings both evidences, and evidence 1 and evidence 2 both show that tawakkul is important, and tawakkul should not be confused with a term called tawkeel. A tawkeel is something called like when you make someone a wakeel, an agent. That's a fiqh issue. Wakala is a fiqh issue, different than tawakkul, even though it shares the same kind of root. I want to add something else to this, which is very important, because the Shaykh, he finishes this part there by mentioning tawakkul is so important for the Muslim to train their heart and strengthen it. Because I said, your tawakkul is an axe in the heart. It can go up, it can go down, it can be strong, it can be weak. You have to train yourself. And so when things become difficult, like nowadays, in our city, in our country, with the COVID, all these things are testing our tawakkul. And it's very important. A true believer is one who strongly believes Allah will provide and still takes the means. The time of the Salaf, they had those challenges. They understood. And one of the doors, if shaitan will come to anybody, is to the door of tawakkul. What do I mean by that? Shaitan will challenge you by making you be afraid that you won't get your provisions. One of the Salaf, his name is Imam Hatim al-Asam. Al-Asam, Hatim al-Asam, one of the Salaf from the past. He mentioned in his biography, Imam Dhahabi mentions in Siyar A'lam al-Nubala, he mentions in his biography that I had 4 wives and 9 children. And shaitan never ceased to come to me to scare me about the rizq. Well, he never got afraid. Imagine, 4 wives, 9 kids. He said, shaitan never ceased to keep coming to me, making wiswas, he said, about the arzaquhum, about the rizq. Always scaring me, how are you going to provide for them? And he said, he wasn't shaken, because he said, after that I knew. One of the things I learned, that I have to go and make the effort, Allah will provide for me, but I always make the effort. So he said, that's how I dispelled this from myself. I know Allah provides, and I always make effort. Wallahi, look at that, guys. Today's time, the number 1 problem you might find is this. Tawakkul becomes da'if, because you're worrying about something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide for you if you truly put your trust in Him. And on top of this, the Salaf Saalih were like us. Things get difficult. Like today, many people, they complain the prices are going up. Time of Salaf is the same problem. Prices go up and things go down. So what do you do when the prices go up? Most people complain and say, I don't know if I can survive. Is it in your hand, the survival and the provisions? You have to train yourself, because shaitan will come and say, you're done for. You're not going to be able to survive. You have to make some tanazul, compromise your deen. The reason why you're not going to get anything, because you're still doing halal things. Time to do some haram. Because how are you going to provide for yourself? One of the Salaf again is mentioned Hilat Awliya. They narrate, they came to Salama ibn Dinar, Abu Hazim. They came to him and said, the prices are going up. What are we going to do? And he said, why are you bothered by that? The one who provides for you when the things are cheap will provide for you when things are expensive. That's it. You close the door on them there. What are you worried about? And like in today, Toronto is expensive. What are you worried about? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't put your risk in your hand. He's already guaranteed He's going to provide. Wallahi, when Muslim, when we learn about tawakkul, then you learn truly where your iman stands. Like now, many people may find their businesses failed, their houses rent is overdue, and this. Where's your trust in Allah? Doesn't mean don't take the means, but how strong are you now? And so we said already, shaitan will come to you and tell you, The problem is your deen. The problem is you're not looking for haram. No, you don't let shaitan put you into doubt. Strengthen your tawakkul, read the ayat of tawakkul, read about what tawakkul is. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promised us, وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. If you put your trust in Allah, Allah will suffice you. وَمَن يَتَقِ اللَّهِ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِهِ يُسْرًا. Whoever fears Allah, Allah will make his affairs easy. And etc. etc. Read those ayat. Because what happens is it teaches you, straighten the heart, take the means, and إِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. With ease comes, with difficult comes ease. And the reason why I'm mentioning all of this is that the issue of tawakkul, the ulama have written excessively about, because you might notice that there's one of the chapters where the more you study it, the better you feel about things. Like Brother Majid is mentioning, monetary success doesn't mean you're guided. But at the same time, when you're worried about those things, put your trust in Allah, ask Him, make more dua. And also train yourself not to feel that if I do this or do that, because asbab, if you want to take them, take the halal ones. If you take a haram asbab, you make it the rizq. But a haram rizq, and you'll be asked about that. And so the believer must always train themselves this way. The Shaykh then he moves into two other categories of ibadat of the heart. Maybe we'll finish with these, which is raghbah wa rahbah. Raghbah wa rahbah has to do yearning and dreading. وَدَلِيلُ رَغْبَةِ وَالرَّهْبَةِ وَالْخُشُوعِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. So he adds all three of them. Yearning for Allah, dreading or being afraid of Allah, and we'll talk about what that means. وَالْخُشُوعِ, and having concentration and humility in front of Allah. قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, as Allah's statement. إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَيَدْعُونَنَا رَغَبًا وَرَهَبًا وَكَانُوا لَنَا خَاشِعِينَ. And they, Zakaria alayhi salam, Yahya and his wife, right, the wife of Zakaria, all of them used to hasten in doing good and calling upon us with raghbah and rahbah, yearning and dreading. And they were verily those who had humility in front of Allah. So here the Shaykh says this ayah teaches us to be hastening good and making dua to Allah between hope and fear. And what is raghbah? Raghbatu raja'un khas. Raghbah is kind of like hope, but it's specific hope. A specific type of hope. It's a specific type of hope. And so the ulama say it comes specifically in relation to when you are eager to ask for something. When you eagerly ask for something, this is raghbah. You have yearning, that's what they say, yearning. So hope is to hope, and yearning it's very strong type of hope. So raja khas. وَالرَّهْبَةُ خَوْفْ خَاص. Rahbah is dreading, specific fear. So it's in your heart, a specific type of fear. Some say it's khawf wal-faza'. It's like almost close to panic, where you're really scared. Whereas khushu' is dhul, submissiveness and humility, only for Allah. And remember we said the ibadah is what is ibadah again? The two pillars. Kamal al-mahabba and Kamal al-dhul. Well, you have to have perfect and complete humility and perfect and complete love. So when khushu' is that kind of humility for Allah. Essentially, the Shaykh said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us here that we should have with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala this kind of level of specific hope. As we said, hope of ibadah. And when you call out to Allah, you ask fervently, right? With desire that Allah provide for you. You really want from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because you know He can provide for you. No one else can provide for you. And the ulama, they mentioned, like for example, the way that Prophet Yunus alayhi salam made dua to Allah in the hut when he was in the whale, that kind of raghbah, desiring for Allah to answer him. And rahbah, fearing that he won't be answered. That's the way that you need to be when you're asking. That's how the prophets and messengers are known to be. When they make dua to Allah, they ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with specific hope. Only for Allah, because they know Allah can provide for them that which they're asking, and they're urgent. And when they're scared of Allah, with a fear that is specific, because they know Allah's punishment, what it really is. So if someone's iman or knowledge is deficient, they can't really have that level. Because how would they know what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can provide? How would they know how scary Allah's punishment is? They're deficient in their knowledge. But the ayah also teaches us to have something beyond that, which is khashya. And we'll talk more about khashya next week. So you can understand al-raja and khawf from last two or three we did. Raja, and then higher than that is raghbah. And then there is khawf, and higher than that is rahbah. So the believers should try to train themselves when you're asking Allah and you're making ibadah to Allah, come with a specific yearning for Jannah. When you yearn for Jannah, how do you yearn? You ask Allah deeply for dua. Right? Heartfelt dua, Allah put us in Jannah. Not casually, like as if you don't care. And only asking Allah because it's raja khas, ibadah. And when you're asking or you fear of Allah, fear that is specific, and knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what He's capable of. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can punish us with all types of punishments. So we're really scared of Him because we have to be and we know it. And then finally, being humble and having humility in front of Allah. Example of that will be when you're praying salah, you have khushu'. When we say khushu' fi salah, it's in the heart first and the body. There's khushu' of the heart and there's khushu' of the badan, the body. So when you're standing for salah, Allah describes the proper prayer as one that's khashi'un. So what kind of khushu' do you have in prayer? First, your heart has to be specifically humble in front of Allah. If you're praying salah and you're arrogant, you think I don't need anything from Allah, then that's what kind of khushu' your body is going to have. So khushu' starts with the heart and the body. You stand straight. وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ. Stand straight for Allah, not moving. So some of the ulama, they mention the person who's truly, even though it's a hadith da'if or mawdu', but it's there, some of the salaf would mention about, to have proper khushu' in your body, you have to have in the heart. Start with the heart, turn your heart towards Allah, and when you stand straight because you know who you're standing in front of. But if you find yourself fidgeting in the salah, no khushu' in the badan, probably the heart is not there either. Have you noticed? If someone says, I want to have khushu' in salah, you have to train yourself. One way to train yourself is don't fidget in the salah. That's the first step. Right? So once you're standing straight and you're fidgeting, next time now you can work on your heart. Truly being afraid of Allah when you're reading your du'as and your ayat in the Quran, contemplating. Then you can have the higher level. So you can't say, I want to have khushu' and then your body just fidgeting. And this is why some people, when they say, I want to learn to have khushu'. Look to the salaf. The one thing you notice about the salah, when they stood for salah, they don't move. Good example, Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu ta'ala anhuma. And we'll finish with this. How did he used to pray? Abdullah ibn Zubayr was known for his khushu' in salah, to the extent that when he stood up for prayer, they said we can move a catapult behind him and he wouldn't hear it. Right? I thought they mentioned, imagine a catapult, how big it is and how loud it is. It moved behind him, he didn't notice. And Urwa ibn Zubayr, his son, is the one who, when he prayed the salah, we know that they amputated his leg in the salah. Thabit, narration is qisr thabita, sahih. He prayed salah. One day he had what they call gangrene, that sickness where they eats up your skin, and you need to be amputated, that part of the body, unless it spreads. So they told him, I have to give you some kind of khamr, some intoxicant to lose your mind so that you don't feel the pain. He said, I'm never going to drink khamr. They say, how are we going to then do it? How are we going to amputate your leg without you feeling it? He said, only one thing, I have to pray salah. He prayed the salah. When he prays salah, he can't think about anything except for Allah, and he amputated while in salah. Allahu Akbar. That level of khushu' maybe we never see in our life. But our goal is to aspire to be like them. So we take from this that khushu' al salaf, you can start with the beginning, just train yourself to stand straight, and then you can learn from different books how to prepare your heart to be more conscious. And the khushu' is not only for salah, you have to have humility in your life as well. So when you hear, for example, Allah said, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, show submissiveness, teach you some adab, subhanAllah, ayat of the Quran, I have to respect it. Hukmullah, I have to respect it. In my heart, I get scared when I hear something is haram. When something halal, I understand it's good. So I have to train myself. Otherwise, you might get arrogance. But khushu' is something we have to have anyways for your ibadah to count. Bi-idhnillah, we'll continue next week from the khashya, inshallah ta'ala. If anyone have any questions, inshallah, we'll take. Otherwise, we'll go for the salah. Yes? In his confidence? So what are some of the things someone could do to put their trust in Allah? They have to train themselves to know that whatever someone does, first of all, he or she should study about the issue. Learn about it. Because when you learn what tawakkul really means, then you would know that it's something that you have to have knowledge of. And then the second step, learn. When the times are difficult, in time of ease, don't feel confident in yourself. Don't feel that you don't need Allah. Train yourself to always be putting dua to Allah in the times of ease, in times of difficulty. Also train yourself when the times of things are going. You always know that at the end of the day, everything comes from Allah. So you take the means, and you don't want whatever happens, you leave it alone. Someone can also learn to strengthen tawakkul by reading the stories of the Salaf and the Sahaba and the Anbiya wal Rusul. Learn how they put their trust in Allah. Also, you have to train yourself not to think that if you took a means, that you guaranteed something, and if you didn't take it, or you didn't take it, you might not get it. You have to train yourself to always, end result is with Allah. So what I have to do, take the steps, and when the outcome comes, I immediately, when I hear it, I'm patient, or whatever it is. So usually, there are books that talk about tawakkul, they teach you the ahkam, and the best way to deal with it, learn the stories of Salaf, and the Anbiya, and Rusul, and then finally, when your life is going, always take the same steps. Time of ease and time of difficulty. You put in your heart, you have to believe firmly. Everything's from Allah. If Allah gave it to me, He could take it away from me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also testing me by it. Some people, they put their trust in Allah in time of difficulty. But at time of ease, they're not putting their trust in Allah. They have trust of, don't worry, I'll be fine. I have all these material things that can help me. No, the true trust is that even in a time of success, I'm scared. If I put my trust in these things, I won't be successful. So it's a mindset someone has. And of course, the more that someone reads about it, the ulama, they teach you other things. Dua also, a lot of dua. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who would make a dua, "Oh Allah, do not leave me to my own self for a blink of an eye." Very important. Why is Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaching us to read this dua? So that when you end up in some position of success or material wealth, you don't feel it's all you. Imagine, the Rasul says daily, "Oh Allah, don't leave me to my own devices or my own self for a blink of an eye." Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he himself is so capable of many things, but yet he's always making dua and adhkar. So a smart Muslim is the one who always takes these means, and at the same time also is preparing themselves by taking the material means and leaving the rest to Allah, and always being optimistic. Husn billah. Any other questions? طيب إن شاء الله. We'll continue next week. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.